We're back. Well, welcome everybody to the final episode of season 24 of Built on Air. Dan can't make it with us here today. We've done a little switcheroo. He had to do an episode by himself, but now it's me and Allie.
Excellent. Yes, we're glad to be here. And Dan is missing for good reasons, some solid family time. So that's exciting. And congratulations to Dan's family as well. Very excited. We were just discussing before we went live that there's not a whole lot in the way of news. Nothing new on the What's New page. There is an event in Boston this week on Thursday, the 28th, as part of Boston's Tech Week. I will be there. Hope to see as many of you there as possible. Super excited for that. And that's really all I got in the way of new stuff.
Yeah, I think they typically post new announcements and features towards the end of the month, which is, I mean, we're close, but not quite. I'm sure there's probably some stealth enhancement that they've snuck in there that we just haven't discovered yet. But when we return sometime in July, we'll probably talk about all of the new things that have been added in both May and June.
Exactly. Love it. All right. Well, today I've got a bunch of hacks, tips, and tricks lined up around the sort function in the rollup field and lookup fields. I have talked about this before in, I think, a couple of seasons ago when it was first released, but I've since kind of added on to my repertoire, as it were, with, or so to speak, with that feature. And I use it all the time for like things that you wouldn't even think of. Like when you hear sort, like that's usually where your mind goes, is just sorting things. But what it does is actually opens up a whole other world of like capabilities. So I've got a bunch of little examples to show here on ways you can use that feature to your advantage for tons of different use cases. And Camille, please feel free to chime in along the way as well. Love this.
Sure. I've been able to make use of the sort feature as well. And it really is one of those things of, it sounded like, oh, what a nice little enhancement. But it really, there's some hidden things that you can do with it that with some careful planning can really kind of unlock some more efficient processes that you can do straight in Airtable instead of having to rely on a kind of third-party automation helper and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, much of this was somewhat possible to do before the feature, but it, as Camille said, would require like an automation or a script or both. And it can easily get messy. Things, if the script failed at any point, then your numbers are all out of whack. So there's just a lot to it. But this feature really solidified a lot of the capabilities without having to use automations. So I'm super excited about that. And I am happy to share my screen if Jenna, our lovely host behind the scenes, is able to put that up. That would be amazing. And I can go to town. Let's see.
There we go.
Thank you, Jenna. Amazing. All right. So I've got in here two different examples that we're going to start with, or two different sets of data. This is silly, just a blank table in between where I'm like separating them out. I could have built two bases, but figured we'd keep it all in-house. So the very first thing I'm going to start with is a simple example of ranking your records. And this is something I've talked about before, but it's worth repeating because I find it very, very useful. And I use it a lot. So in this table, I've got a bunch of fake people, and they are linked with a self-linking field to the contact that referred them. So Ulysses was referred by Tressa Dyson. What a name. Jobina? Referred by Anna Lawrence. Funny name. Okay. So each one of those may or may not have been referred by a contact. And then we have the reciprocal here. Then I'm able to count how many referrals each of these contacts has brought in. So I have these sorted, by greatest to least. What? And sometimes that might be enough, but what if I want to do a couple more things from there? Like if I want to potentially share a leaderboard showing always only the top 10 records. In order to do that, I would need to have the numbers 1 through 10 in another field somewhere. And that's what I was referring to with needing an automation or a script previously to be able to do that. You would need to, at a regular cadence, select all of these records, sort them by this number, and then determine, number them 1 through however many records you have and update a field using a script. And that can get really out of whack, especially if you're going off of like when record updated as your trigger. If you are going to use this as an automation, I would recommend doing it as a cron job, just so that it's regularly updated, not immediately, because that could have weird side effects if people are updating things at the same time. Like you might say, link this person here, that makes this a 5, and then you do this and do it the same thing down here to make that a 4. Well, now this automation's already running to update that number, and then this one's going to get the wrong number. It's all over the place. So
yeah,
that could get so messy. But now enter our new feature. So we won't have to use any automations. It'll just happen right in front of our eyes, which is amazing. But I'm going to go over just some ways of getting this, the steps that you need to put in place first. And they can get a little confusing, but I'm going to go slow. So first, I'm going to do it with no ties. So therefore, because I have 2 10s here, one of these will be number 1 and one will be number 2. That's what I mean when I'm saying no ties. Mm-hmm. Then I'll show another example where these would both be number 1 and then this would become number 3. So we'll go over how to do both of those first. So the first thing you would need is a record ID or some other unique identifier for each record. I would recommend using the record ID just because you can guarantee it's going to be unique and it's always going to be there. So once I have that, that's of course just this formula here. Very simple. Then what I need is all of these records to be linked to another record, because I need to be able to roll up this list of record IDs somewhere. Mm-hmm. The caveat I would add with this is if you have a lot of data, this can get a little bit messy, or rather expensive in terms of performance. I only have 100 records on this table. I've done this with thousands of records, but once you get into the tens of thousands of records zone, you might want to consider maybe having them broken up into time ranges, something to make it so that you're not linking all 50,000 records to one record. Yeah. I could say a lot more. We could do a whole episode on just that technique. But let's assume that we know we're never going to go over 10,000 records in this space, and I'm just going to link them all to one record, which I usually just call my summary record or utility record. And I'm going to just copy the same value all the way down that column. And then I'm going to switch this to link to a new table, also called summary. And I don't need them to be linked to multiple records, just one record on my summary table. Now I have this table here. I've got all my contacts linked to it. And what I would then recommend doing, actually, just so we cover all of our bases here, pun intended, is I would set up an automation to make sure that all of your contacts always stay linked to that record. So that is just going to be link contacts to summary. And I always use when record matches conditions for this. Well, 99% of the time I'm using this trigger. But that's going to be on the contacts table when summary is empty. Then I want to update that record on the contacts table, the same record that triggered the automation. And I'm just going to fill in the field summary with the word summary. So super simple, kind of silly, but very powerful. If I go now and wipe out any of these, it'll get put right back. If I add a new one, it'll immediately get linked to that summary table as well. Never have to worry about something not being included. I'm going to delete that extra record now, though. All right. One thing you could also do is, wait to include them until they actually have a referral. If you're starting to hit that, if you've got many, many records and you want to limit the number of links you have, you could do that as well. So from there, on my summary table, essentially what I need to do is I want to roll up the record IDs of all of my contacts. So I'm going to add a roll-up field pointed at my contacts table through this link here. And I'm going to grab the record ID. And I'm just going to leave that as my function here, array unique values. And this will be all contact record IDs. But the most important part is to scroll down, which you wouldn't really notice. Like roll-up fields bother me. They're my favorite field, but the configuration screen is just too squished. So you have to scroll down. It's the last option before you actually write the formula. And you want to say, I want to sort these records before summarizing. And you want to pick the field you want to sort by. So in my scenario, that's going to be my number referrals field. And I want to sort that greatest to the least, most to least. So 9 to 1. And I'm going to hit create. So now theoretically, this first record ID should be one of the ones that has number 10. So 3N3 and IEO. We have there, IEO, 3N3. That's these two, so on and so forth. If you wanted to have a tiebreaker field, you could do that as well, or you could be like, just go alphabetically. So in that scenario, you could just add another sort, and that would become your tiebreakers. So if you sorted by name then. So now that switched it. So now 3N3 is first, and that's because J comes before U. That's step one, essentially. Now the magic happens. So what I'm going to do is add a second roll-up field. And I'm going to do this in a few different steps and then merge it all into one, just so you can understand the bits and pieces of how this function works. So what I need is I'm going to do array join values. And then I think I have, this will be all ranked contact record IDs. So essentially now on every single record, I have the same value. This is another, like, I love this trick using the summary table to get global variables across a table. So there's just so many things you can do with that utility record trick. But now that I have all of that list here, what I want to do is find where the record ID is in the list that pertains to each one of these. And then figure out how many commas come before that. So come from the very first record here, or rather, either one of those, rather. This would be the first record. There's 0 commas before it. And in my function, I'm going to add 1 to it. So that would become number 1. If I find this record ID, there's 1 comma before it. That would be rank 2, so on and so forth. So how do we go about doing that? So first thing I'm going to do is say, I want to find the record ID of the contact within all ranked contact record IDs. So let's see, index of record ID. So already I've got kind of a value that I could go off of to sort by. And if I really wanted to, I could kind of cheat and say, I know that all record IDs are 17 characters long. So I could take that into account to do the math here and, like, you know, be like, okay, get the modulus, divide by 17, figure out what all these numbers are. That might be enough to go off of. However, we don't know that record IDs are always going to be 17 characters. So what I would recommend is doing it based on the separators in between rather than the actual count of characters. That way you know it's always going to be correct. So we know the index of the record ID. That's for here. That starts with this. This is character 19, that R right there. So what I want to do is basically grab everything before it. So I'm going to use the left function and say, give me all of this, and then count how many commas are within it. So if I do that, I'm going to say left, all rank contact record IDs, index of record ID. Oh. Yeah, that's what I want. Then, or I would actually say -1, I guess. I guess it doesn't necessarily matter. I think I have that in my other function. Then, out of that, so this is the, I don't know what to name this. Ultimately, I would put all of this in one formula, but I'm trying to break it out into steps just to make it easy. We'll just be like trimmed ranked contact record IDs. All right, so now in order to get my number, I just need to count the number of commas that are in each one of these fields here. And in order to do that, I still have absolutely no idea how this works, math-wise. It blows my mind. Somebody dropped this in the forum years and years ago. I saw W. Van Hall share it. It was not he who wrote it, but he shared the formula and was like, some guy dropped this on the forums years ago, and I use it all the time, and so do I. So,
which means it's been on the forums for at least like 7 years.
At least, I would say even longer. I'd say probably 12, like long time. Because I think I grabbed it in like 2019. Probably even longer before that. Just crazy. Either way, what this does, and I always have to copy and paste it in here. I save this function in like a separate repository so that I can reuse it because I never remember how to write it myself. But essentially it's saying, if we were to just leave this alone, what this is saying is how many times does the word sweatshirts appear in the field items? And we're going to change these variables out for our real ones. So in this scenario, I have that as my items field. Let me just copy that, replace, the word items with that, and then replace sweatshirts with a comma. And then I want to add 1. Oh, well.
I think your other clause, because this is if there is items, then your sum,
Yeah.
and then your if false could just be 1.
Right. Let's see. Oh, that's true. Yeah. But then not necessarily though, because if that would make all of my, if something errored and this was blank for another reason, I wouldn't want them to get
Fair enough.
1. I think this would do it instead if I just say where the index is. No, where? Oh, comma.
Yeah, no comma.
There we go.
Yep.
There. Okay, so this is my rank. And if I sort by this, the only thing that changed there was that these two flipped. But let's go over here to there. So now let's give somebody else, let's say that Cheryl was referred by Ulysses. So if we do this, now Ulysses becomes number 1 and Jabina becomes number 2. So this will always change dynamically based on your count that you're sorting off of.
Mm-hmm.
So super, super powerful. Use this all the time for not just for ranking, but like numbering things within groups, which can be useful as well. So if you've got like, I don't know, if you just like, instead of using the auto number for any number of reasons, that the auto number would just keep going no matter what. Whereas if you use this technique, if I split these into different groups, it would start over with each group, which is super powerful.
So I've done something similar for when I have invoices linked to a client. You want to number each invoice for every client starting with 1. If I'm just starting working with a client, I don't want their invoice to say invoice 5. It's the first one for that person. So having a workflow like this, which involves linking the records together, allows you to have your own bespoke auto number, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've done exactly that same use case as well. Now, if we were to, let me just grab my finished function here, and I'm just going to copy and paste it into a big roll-up field. And essentially what that will do is give us our same value here, but all in one function. So here I have rank, no ties. And what I'm going to do is it's still pointed at the same field, not changing that. And essentially this, and I wish I could make this taller. Let's see. Oh,
once per episode, I ask Airtable to make minor adjustments to their UI, and this is that for this episode.
Exactly. It's wild. Um, so this function, and actually I'm just going to hit save and then put it over here. I wish I could. Yeah, either way. So essentially all this does is combine all those steps we just went through into one big long formula. If I zoom in on this a little bit, so we've basically just got, all right, if I have values to roll up, meaning if there's anything in that summary big long list, then I'm going to sum 1 plus all of this fun stuff, which this is that crazy formula that we were just talking about, counting the number of commas, just split out onto multiple lines, so it's a little easier to read. And then this is where we are finding that record ID in the list and subtracting 1. So that's one big function that you can just copy and paste. Instead of having to go through all of these separate little steps here, I could do it all in my one field, and that should have exactly the same values as this. Super fun. But let's say we want to have ties, because depending on your use case, you might want 2 people with 10 to both be number 1. And let's see what that'll look like. I'm going to get rid of that so that those stay both as the same value. All right. So Camille actually helped me with this. The first time I went over. You did. You had the idea at the end of one of our episodes where I went over this the first time it was released. And you were like, oh, well, you could use the value instead of the record ID.
Yeah.
And I was like, light bulb. It was awesome. So thank you for that. So what we could do is, instead of trying to find the record ID in that big roll up, we can roll up the number, the actual numbers that we're ranking by, and then find the value in the list. So that means that both of these values, or both of these contacts rather, would be looking for the number 10 in the list. And that number 10 is going to be number 1. So they would both become number 1.
Right.
Super cool. One big piece to mention. Let's just say I do it. Let's just do it, and I'll show you what the problem is.
I think I've detected what the problem will be when using numbers specifically.
I think you're probably well ahead. Yes, absolutely. Let's see. So all of this can stay exactly the same, but what I need to do is point this instead to my referrals field. Asterisk here. This is not how I'm going to leave it. I'm going to show you what will go wrong if I did this. So this would be all referral. Why can't I spell? Referral counts. So we now have the number of counts. And it is important here to use array unique. If you used array join and had, 10, 10, 6, 5, 4, 4, 4, 4, like all that, that would throw off your numbers a lot. So definitely use array unique to make sure you only have the unique values to compare against. Now, let's say I just go through the motions and I take that field. I'm just going to replace.
Good luck.
Yeah, right.
Fighting the UI to do it.
If I zoom back out, it'll be better, I think. There we go. So I'm switching the field I'm rolling up to be my all referral counts instead of the record IDs. And I'm not finding the record ID anymore here. I'm finding the number referrals. And
while you're doing this is a good time to remind everyone watching that when you're using the formula editor in a roll-up field, you can use all regular formula functions and reference other fields in whatever table you're currently on, but the autocomplete for field names isn't there. So just type confidently and you'll get it. It will still turn purple when you get the full name of it correctly.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. I find that so frustrating when I'm like
Mhm.
halfway done writing the formula and then I'm like, oh my gosh, is it number referrals or number of referrals? Like I
Yeah.
what actually this is kind of new where now you can open this and look
Oh,
at it while you're writing your formula. It won't like freak out.
yeah.
So that's really helpful. um, so basically all I've done here is I've just replaced the record ID with number of referrals, and I'm pointing this at that other field here. But
Yep.
this is going to not be right. And then this will be called with ties. So looks all right at first. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, 1, great. 2, yeah, that's actually still not what we would do, I don't think, or would it? Maybe. Either way, this is all going to be incorrect because, or well, actually, with these values, I think it might be fine.
Well, until you get to 1 is the
Yep,
problem.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
we've detected the issue in that what we're doing is we're finding where in the unique list of values does this value first appear. And when
Mhm.
Airtable is doing this, it's treating it all as that list is a one big text object.
Mhm.
So 1 really does appear first as part of the whole number of 10, but it's
Mhm.
not quite smart enough to tell, oh, this is a different value than 1, the single digit integer, as opposed to the full body of 10. This is fixed,
Exactly.
which I'm sure Ali is about to go over.
Yes. Fixable, absolutely. So there's, I'm sure, probably a million ways of doing this, probably some more elegant than what I'm about to show. But what I have been doing is something like this, where I'd be like, number referrals added. And I literally just say asterisk, number referrals, and asterisks.
Okay.
So So now I have asterisk 2 asterisk, asterisk 1 asterisk, but the 10 is asterisk 10 asterisk. So that's important because if I'm going to be searching for this value instead of just 1, I'm not going to match on asterisk 10 asterisk.
Yeah.
um, and I will only match on the one that I should. So super useful there. But what I would do is flip this to be that new field, padded, leave everything else the same. So now I have this list. And on my contacts, I'm just going to come here and say rank with ties and flip this with, I don't need to do that. I can flip this with number referrals padded. And then all of my ones should be correctly ranked at the end.
Yeah.
So that is pretty simple thing you can do to just switch that out. Switch it with a different field, and now you have ties allowed, which is very useful.
Yeah, and the particular way that you're doing this also makes it so that this works just fine with having a variable length of each value. Like it's handy that record IDs are always 17 characters. Today it's possible that in the future maybe they become longer when there's too many records for them. They run out of unique combinations of record IDs. But with numbers, like someone might score 1 point and someone might score 100. So having to deal with the difference between 1 and 3 characters, you don't have to do that with this implementation, again, because you're searching in that very long roll up for how many commas are there, which tells you how many values there are before in the list.
Exactly. Yeah, and that theoretically could be any separator, as any
Sure.
separator and any unique value. That's all you need to, or not necessarily unique value if ties are okay.
Right. And you would just make sure that whatever separator you choose can't be included in whatever value. So record IDs are all, letter characters and numbers. It will never have a comma in the middle of a record ID. So commas are safe, but you could have also chosen a pipe character or a semicolon, you know.
Exactly. Yep. Very, very good thing to note there. Love it. All right. So that's ranking. I'm going to skip to the next example, which I've kind of just started experimenting with, but I've been using it a lot and it's very useful.
Mm-hmm.
So the skipping manual sort, because we're going to come back to that after, the next record concept, which if you're a long-time user or a very techie person, your hackles might go up when you hear the words next record when in talking about Airtable, or any database in general. There really isn't a concept of the next record because it
Yeah.
could be anything. You can sort, you can filter, like you don't know how somebody has their things sorted, etc. But if you have your data structured in such a way so that, yes, things are numbered, you know that, like, for example, I have here days, and then, like, let's say we're a landscaping company going out to different stops on each day. You have those stops numbered, you know, this is stop 1, stop 2, stop 3. So theoretically, you can trust that stop 2 on the same day should be the next record, in
Yeah.
quotes, air quotes. So we're going to go about getting that record ID, the record ID of the next record, on the same line as the one before it. And why is that powerful? Lots of reasons, I'm sure many of which I haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm like, my gears just start turning. I'm like, oh, what else could I do with that?
I use what you're about to go through for approval workflows, where if 5 people need to approve one thing, but it's sequential, you got to go to person 1 first, and then it's important the steps go in the right order. So the next approval makes it really easy for an update record step to say, okay, well, take this record ID of the next record and paste it into the linked record field or whatever, so that the next person can be go through the approval process. So
exactly.
I too use this feature for sequential items and getting the next thing in that sequence.
Right. It's super, super useful. And like, and I love that. Yeah. Approval workflows. That's a great use case. Another one for this, I actually came up with this while working with a landscaping client. And we have a softer portal for them. And so each of these stops has their own softer page. But when they're on stop 1, they want to be able to quickly just click to go to the next stop. So like
Right.
while they're driving, they can just say, okay, next stop. So I don't even need any automations with that. I can have a roll up field that's like, here's the record ID of the next stop. And that becomes my link for that user, which is
Yeah, great.
great. So how do we do it? Let's find out. What I want to do here is on the days table, and I got a little overzealous. I don't need any of these. keep it simple. I am going to roll up similarly to before. I want to roll up. Oh, wait, no. Yes, I do. Yes. I want to roll up all the record IDs. That's all I'm doing here. And I'm going to say all stop record IDs. Now, on this, you might use like conditional logic, like depending on your use case. For example, this use case, they have stops that might be canceled sometimes. So I might
Sure.
also put this into here and be like, don't include the canceled ones. Just,
Mhm.
keep all of that in mind as you're doing this. Follow through your logic appropriately. But we also, missing a step, need to sort this. We want to sort by the stop number. And this time I'm going to leave it 1 to 9. So least to greatest. And Then I'm going to go back to my stops table, and I want to say roll up. And this one's much, much more simple. I'm doing all stop record IDs. And here I just want to say array join or array slice, array unique values. And I want to slice this, or I guess I could just do values, right? Don't even need array unique. Now I get so confused about array slice.
Yeah, confession time. I don't get it either. So for lookups, it's much simpler because it's just sort of a toggle, similar to the sort like UI. Array slice, I feel like I should get it, and I've tried to use it before, and it simply would not work in the way that I thought it would. Do slicing all the time in JavaScript. For some reason, the formula eludes me.
It is wild. Like it's different, I think. It's first of all, it starts with index 1, which throws me off. Then the slice, basically what it's trying to do is says the first value is index 1, but it doesn't say explicitly, like, you know how the mid function, you start with an index and then you say go 10 characters. Yeah, like 10 characters from there. But this, I think, is different. It's actually like, it's not 10 pieces from where you start. It's actually the numbers, like the index value that you need to say. Either way, let's just see what this gives me. That is what I want. Okay, so wow, first try, which never happens, honestly. I always think I'm starting to get it, but not quite. But basically what this is saying, if I put this in a field, just so we can simplify it and make it look easier to see, the next stop number. Wild. I can create that all while having this open still. Either way. So next stop number, basically what I want to do is take this. Let's just do array unique so we can see it, the whole thing. So I want to find, I already know I'm on stop 1 on this record, which is this record ID. I want to find stop 2's record ID. So I want to find the second thing in the list. So that should, for array slice, what it needs to be filled in with is the index of the item you're looking for. So in this case, it's 2. And then where you end is also 2. Which to me, the part that's really confusing. It's like start and end at 2.
Yeah, okay, that explains my previous issues with the formula. So that's helpful. And just calling out why this is so different from your first example is because in your first example, we were doing array join, which took the array and treated it as a string. So the comma, which was your chosen separator, was part of the whole list. But because we're only doing array unique right now, it is still an array, meaning the comma is not actually there. That is a visual representation for the people looking at the list.
Exactly. Like this is still an array under the hood, which is why we can use array slice on it. If I had used array join on my initial roll up to the days table, this would no longer work.
Then you'd have to use left or mid or something like that.
Correct. So basically all I need to do here is I could, replace this now with just next stop number instead of having to add 1 every time. So if I were writing this like in JavaScript, this would be next stop record ID. What really throws me off is usually I would say, slice next stop number and then 1 would be like, I only want 1.
Yes.
But that doesn't work. That actually gives me nothing because I'm starting further in the list than 1 and I can't It's so confusing.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Well, I've learned something. I now know what I've done wrong with the elusive array slice.
Love it. Glad we could learn it together too. I'm feeling a little bit better with it. But that I've found to be extremely useful. It also has come in handy, and I don't necessarily have a good example for this, but so same client, they have time entries, and they might have more than one staff clocked in at the same time, which is theoretically, you could represent this with a junction table and force it to be one staff member per time entry.
Yeah.
But basically, we've ended up with a many-to-many relationship. So that means that we weren't able to get the most recent time entry time on the staff table record because reasons, many-to-many relationships. Very confusing. But with this new feature, I think it actually kind of does work because from my staff table, I can do this same thing and just be like, give me the most recent, give me the first item, like sort by time, and then give me only the first one in the list for that staff member, what they're linked to.
Right.
So that actually, it works to get the most recent value, which is an example I should have put in here as well. But it's literally the same example we just did, just using a different field rather than the record ID. So super, super useful there. Now, with this, as Camille said, another step to make this even more powerful would be if you linked these together. So if I had stops, next stop, and then I could even filter it by a condition to be like only where the record ID matches this, but I don't need to do that in this scenario. But essentially now an automation could take this and, make sure that this field always matches this.
Yeah.
And then I can now look up any of the values or roll them up from the other stops to here. So you can imagine that just gets exponentially more powerful. Keeping with the same like time tracking example, if I want to see the time between these stops, like the travel time from stop 1 to stop 2, I can then figure out when the time on this one ends, the time on this one starts, and I can get the start time from this one on this record and figure out the difference. All sorts of things. I could rant forever about all the ideas I have there.
Yeah. For my approval process example, even the third record, which has no next ID because it's the last in the list, that's also important. We had an automation that says if the last approver approved their item and there is no next step record ID, then you can mark the whole application or process or whatever it is complete because it's gone through all of its approvals.
Exactly. And so that you would want to know, there's a few ways to do this. You could count, you could use the max. I mean, the reason I'm going with max here is just in case. Well, I guess I don't know. You could argue
if you deleted stop 2, then
right.
1 and 3 would be your stop numbers unless you corrected it, but count would tell you 2.
Right.
So the number 2 does not appear in either of the 2 remaining records. So max would be, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm going with max here. So max number of stops, and then here you could be like, what I would do is I'd add from the day, stop number, shouldn't have done that, should be number of stops, but either way, I would be like if and stop number, like only care if I have both things, because if I didn't do this if and part, it would end up saying true if both were empty, and I wouldn't want that. And then I'd just say like if stop number equals max values true. Love this option now. Use this all the time. I, as a general rule, do not ever use actual checkbox fields, but I've been using the formulated checkbox fields. Can't speak
Yep.
today. All the time. Last stop. So now I always know that that's the last stop. If I add another and number it 4, that becomes my last stop.
Yep.
And then you could use that in your function to be like, okay, that's where my approval process ends. So if this is checked, email the last step or whatever your process
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Super useful. Excellent. Now I'm going to go jump into one last little fun hack, which I'm going to use the same table to do. And we'll do my stop number. Here, I'm going to go into an interface. So, manual sort ranking. This is just an idea that popped into my head actually at Dare Table last year in Chicago, and I built it and haven't found a use case for it yet, but I'm sure I will. So we'll just do whatever. I'll name it interface. That's fine.
Oh, I think we're only seeing one
Oh,
tab. Yeah,
oh
we
no.
don't see your interfaces.
Thank you. That's weird. I thought I shared window. Okay. Here. So can you see this now?
Yes.
Excellent. Perfect. Okay. So I want to not do contacts. I wanted to use stops. Let's go do that. And let's just group these by day. And sort by, I'm going to add a manual sort field.
And for reasons unknown, I believe this is the only way you can add this field type. You cannot add it in, I think, literally any other way, even by the API. I feel like you can't do it.
That's correct. It is correct. So it's quite a confusing field, but basically what it lets us do is it actually does add a field here called manual sort. And when I allow for editing in line, I can, why can't I move things around here? Okay. I'm going to ignore the stop number for now because what I want to do is create my own stop number field with a new one. So I have a manual sort. If I move this one above the first one, that A2 will change to something else, ZZ, which
Yeah,
I don't understand why Z comes before A.
the day I understand the manual sort field, as I think the day they make me the CEO of Airtable, I think that's the last remaining mystery as to how this field even works.
Yeah, it's so confusing. Like, I don't understand how Z comes before A, but it's been like that. Every time I do this, it ends up with a Z. I'm like, that's so interesting. Either way, I'm going to now go back into the data layer. And now I have a manual sort field on my actual table here.
Yep.
I'm going to create a new roll-up. Same thing we did earlier. I'm going to just go copy that same formula, but I'm going to switch it so that we're not, this is back to like the ranking example. We're not going off of stop number or record ID. We're going off of manual sort. And actually, I think we should probably also do the padding for that one. So I'm going to do that quickly.
Well, yeah, the mysteries of this field mean it's really impossible to know what it's going to come up with. And I think it's alphanumeric, but don't quote me because, again, simply no way of knowing what it's going to really output.
Exactly. Um, or no, wait, I'm being silly. I can just do the record IDs because I don't want ties. But still, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't need to do the padded because I'm going off of record ID, manual sort. But yes,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
that I think would make sense. And then no ties. I'm just gonna literally copy this function, copy and paste it to my stops. And then this will be days. And record ID is what I'm looking for. And then this would be manual sort. We'll do stop number, manual sort. I think just want to make sure I actually did. Yeah, I sorted by manual sort. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So now, oops, I need to go in this window, interface, my stop number, manual sort, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I preview, if I'm like, actually, this one needs to be stop 1, now it renumbers itself. So wherever I put it in the list, it will become those numbers. And it's not so easy to see with record IDs because I didn't put the actual names in, but that did change.
Yeah.
But again, super excited about this one. Haven't really found the best use case for it yet, but I'm sure it's out there.
It's sort of less, I mean, it's not using the manual sort field anymore, but something similar of like, you tell me what number this is in the list, back to the auto ranking for, again, sequential items. If you have the start time of a bunch of events that all happen on the same day, you could say, well, this is the first event and this is the second event and this is the third, because you're able to do that same sort of comparison, but using time instead of either a number or a mysterious alphanumeric combination.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I like that. It could also even be like your tiebreaker too, if you wanted.
Yep.
You could manually set them that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a whole bunch of tips and tricks for using the sort function. I didn't even touch on, the obvious ones, which would be, sorting the actual roll-up field, which is, for example, just let's do the name. And I'm going to do array join. So, for example, I often use HTML to mark up a list like this into like a table or, a nice looking just set of little code to display on a page. But it is sorted just because of the way I added the records.
Yeah.
But I could now make sure it always stays sorted, just always sort it by what I want. Super, super useful. It's like the whole reason why I wanted this feature was to be able to do that. But
Yeah.
now I use it for all sorts of other things.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you.
All very useful and pretty extensible. It comes up often enough that there's some kind of something that you can build out of the general idea of, if you sort the records first, you'll get most of the way there. There's still, we've always had to add an extra helper formula at the end, but the sorting of the array in the first place is what really unlocks all that potential.
Yeah, exactly. And the array slice kind of adds into that a whole other ball game. Now that I know how to use it.
Yep. It simply works differently than all of the other Airtable functions that are similar in that regard, and it's also different than how JavaScript does it, which is Airtable's coding language of choice. But that's okay, because now we know.
Yes, now we know, and we'll use it to our advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for joining in, and thank you, Camille, for a great season. And Dan, we missed you today.
Mm-hmm.
But we will be back in July with our new season.
We sure will.
Yay.
Right.
So,
Bye, everyone.
bye-bye. Thank you.